got to see a preview of Boys in the Boat, directed by George Clooney. What did I think? Find out right now. Okay, The Boys in the Boat, which I think is an absolute horrible name. I know it matches the book, but for a film, come on. It could have been called anything else. Anything else. The Boys in the Boat really gets nothing mentally there that this is a movie that we have to see. So it's already, I think, in a downturn just for the fact that people are not going to know what it is to go see it. And unless you saw a trailer, it's just not going to... I think that's why they sent it out for pre-screen, because they want to get word of mouth out there, and they don't think it's going to happen with the marketing. They don't really know how to market this thing. So it's unfortunate. So this is... I don't know how many movies George Clooney has directed, but I got to say that he did a very, very good job with this film. At certain times, I actually felt like I was watching an older film. So that's pretty interesting that he was able to capture the essence of the time period, because it is a period piece. So this takes place in 1936. So this is during basically the Depression age. America has not entered the war yet. I don't think there is a war at this point, except in Germany. This is Hitler's rise to power during this period of time, and he wanted to show the Aryan race. He wanted to show it off. So the Olympics being in Berlin was a perfect time for him to do this. Of course, Germany itself was, and especially Berlin, was in an uproar at this point. I think Kristallnacht had already happened, which is the Night of Broken Glass. The Jews were already, being persecuted at this time. And, of course, it's kind of like what happened in San Francisco when all of the leaders were going there and they cleaned it all up. That's what happened during the Olympics in Germany during 1936. They cleaned it all up because there was obviously pamphlets all over the place from people, trying to get a rebellion together and all this other stuff. Everything was all cleaned up. All the anti-Jew speech and everything else was cleaned up. And of course, the Nazi flags were everywhere. And that was Berlin at the time. And they needed to show a good face because I think even at this point, Hitler was making plans on invasion and wanted to make sure nobody knew it. In fact, I wrote a book during this time period where it's a biography about a woman, and she was there at the Olympics. She saw Jesse Owens win the gold medal, and the fact that the Hitler refused to put the gold medal on him because he was black, of course. He did not fit the Aryan race. So if you want to read my book, it has a lot to do with the Olympics at the time. At least a couple of chapters are leading up into the war, because the book takes place, obviously, through the war. And she was Jewish, so, kind of what happened there. It's not a concentration camp story, though. It's a little bit more of a fight for survival. And it's called Escape from Berlin, the Diane Jacobs story. It's on Amazon and a couple other places. So anyway, so this movie is about that. It doesn't go into the war, of course. It's more about the people that these guys that were all down and out. They had nothing, and all they had was this rowing that put them above everyone else, because it wasn't financial. They were going up against colleges that had a lot more money and a lot more materials behind them. And, were they able to succeed in getting to Berlin? And then were they able to succeed in getting, placement there, whether it was bronze, silver, gold, or anything at that point against what Germany was pushing as the best race in existence. And of course, even with Jesse Owens winning, that blew the whole thing out of the water considering he was black. So I heard he was one of the fastest people in the world, especially at that time, probably even now. So anyway, this movie was written by two guys, which I find very interesting, because Daniel James Brown, it's his book was it's about his book, so he has no screen credits for the most part, and that's the part I found interesting. But yet they gave him writing credit, and then Mark L. Smith has written quite a bit, and I think this is where he met Clooney. Because he did that movie for one of the streamers, I think it was Netflix, I'm not sure, called A Midnight Sky. He also did Revenant with DiCaprio. So he's got some stuff. He did Overlord, which had some flaws, but I really liked Overlord. And probably the most gory, disturbing, and this is coming from a guy who likes horror movies, but probably the most disturbing movie I've ever seen in my life, and that's Martyrs. If you want to be kept up at night, that's the movie to see. Because I've seen them all, and that one is the one that sticks with me the worst. So he's got some writing credits behind him. Clooney's, of course, been in the industry forever. He's got Joel Edgerton as pretty much the only name, and Joel Edgerton is not a big name. You probably know him from the prequel Star Wars films, and then the Obi-Wan Kenobi movie or TV show as Owen Lars. But he's done a pile of stuff. Callum Turner he's done barely anything of note. He's done just a couple of things like War and Peace. He did, and The Green Room. Again, lower budget stuff. And he was in Fantastic Beasts as well. And, he's a very good actor. Like, he's obviously going to go places, but at this point in time, he's really not a name at all. So that's another thing this movie has going against it. This really, if you look at the cast, you're not going to recognize anyone. You'll recognize Joel Edgerton, but you're like, he's not a star, Then they probably should have the female, the one who plays his wife. They should probably have her in more things because her name is Courtney Hengler. But again, you're not going to recognize the name. You're only going to recognize her from her face because she plays Ralph Macchio's wife in Cobra Kai. And if anything, she's going to probably be the most recognizable person in the cast. In fact, I was watching it. This was a blind screening, so I had no idea what I was seeing. Once I saw it was The Boys in the Boat, I'm like, oh, great, because I wanted to see this movie anyway. And it comes out in a couple of weeks or whatever, so I'm going to get to see it ahead of time. And there was so many other movies coming out that I wasn't sure if I was going to get a chance to see this one, so since it was a pre-screen, I was happy that it was so. And but anyway, she's probably the most recognizable person in the cast. And I was watching a lot, and I'm like, where do I know her from? And then I realized it was that one who plays the other female lead that plays Joyce. Her name is Haley Robinson. She's been in practically nothing. She was like in a Hulu movie, one of those horror short movies that Hulu was doing. So anyway, I don't know what the budget of this budget has not been released. So I have no idea what the budget of this film is, but I'm hoping to God it was not high. He had to do a lot of work as far as production design for considering it's a period piece. And in fact, one time they had the boats going, right? And they had a train on a track following the thing so that all the people that bought tickets can see without binoculars, without the binoculars seeing the actual race go on because they were following on the train. I thought that was really interesting. I never even thought about that. That's a really good idea. But anyway, but he had... he had that train, he had, all this stuff. He had to recreate Berlin in 1936. But the production design was probably the most expensive part of this thing. And, but again, there was times when I felt like I was watching an old movie because he really did His production design team was great. His DP was, I mean, he probably knows some of the best DPs that have worked for him for practically nothing. But and of course, he had to go union with the things, so he had minimums that he had to match. But I hope to God it wasn't a high budget, because there's no way this movie's making any money. And I really hope people go see it. I mean, at the end of the film, people were clapping and stuff like that. It wasn't a Bad News Bears thing. So it wasn't a traditional, movie like that. It was more of a Rocky. If I'm going to compare it to anything, it's more like a Rocky. So it's about people that are down and out. This is all they've got. If they don't hit this chance, they've got nothing. They're never going to make it in life, pretty much. They're going to be stuck, in the lower class. And so it's that keeps pulling you forward. And, of course, they make mistakes, and there's things that happen that, make it go, oh, are they going to do it? And then even the guy that was doing like the rah-rah, he was like the cheerleader of the group. He was the guy that set the pace for the boat. He was like, okay, engine room, you do this, and this guy's, you do this. And, it was pretty interesting. I never even thought about some of the stuff that I learned about boating, about rowing, I should say, not about boating. It's really about rowing. But the cast was great. The pace of the film was great. I was not bored. And literally at the end, I had to take my recliner down, and I had to sit at the end of my seat because I was very interested about how what was going to happen. But so if I was going to give this thing if I was going to grade this thing, I would say it's probably an 8.5 out of 10. It's very energetic. He knew how to make the punches. Clooney's been in the business forever. He knew how to direct this thing. He knew how to direct the actors. He knew how to direct the camera. And has probably get a really good DP in there to help him set up the shots. And I can't say enough good stuff about this film. I hope everybody goes to see it. It's kind of one of those movies where I'm afraid nobody's going to see it. It's just going to end up on streaming, and that's about the extent of it. So anyway, that's it for me. Thank you so much for helping me grow the channel out. And let me know if you guys go see it or not. There's obviously Wonka's out this upcoming week. And yeah, I'll probably try to check that out. I'm not really that interested in it, but I'll check it out anyway, just so I can do a review on it. I will have other videos pop up right here, of other reviews I've done, or the comic reviews, movie reviews, board game stuff, pretty much anything you're into. I probably am doing videos on it. All right, thank you guys again so much, and have a great holiday, and I'll see you guys on the next one.